Segregation laws in the southern states of America. This was something that when slavery ended in 1865, black African Americans were still not really viewed as equal. So the segregation laws were there almost to keep them in the place. Now, something that I really want you to remember, because this is so easy to make a mistake on in the exams, is segregation laws are exactly the same as Jim Crow laws. There's absolutely no difference whatsoever. So if you're talking about Jim Crow laws, you're talking about the segregation laws that existed. In your exams, you'll be asked some examples really of these laws. So the most you're going to get asked on this really, it could be part of an 8 marker, but you might be throwing this in an essay answer. What happened with the segregation laws is it was mainly in public places. So you need to remember to say things like beaches, they had separate beaches, they weren't allowed in certain restaurants, so some were for white only. You obviously got things like that on buses because you know about Rosa Parks and the bus boycott. But remember, the segregation laws were in the south, and in the north there was no official segregation. There was certainly still racism, but there was no official segregation. Now this obviously impacted on the way of life for black African Americans, because how can you get any real progress or change if you're not allowed to even sit next to a white person? And this was something that really did upset the black African Americans. The bit of legislation that gets rid of the segregation laws or the Jim Crow laws is the 1964 Civil Rights Act. You remember in class me talking about JFK. Now JFK originally had not really supported the civil rights movement, but his brother Bobby Kennedy had. And Bobby Kennedy and Martin Luther King had managed to change JFK's views. And after the March on Washington, JFK promised to end the segregation laws in America because he thought it divided people, and that obviously black Africans did deserve some type of progress. Unfortunately, he was assassinated in November of that year, so it was up to Johnson in 1964 to pass the Kennedy Bill, which was in memory of JFK and what he promised Martin Luther King. Now, just so that you remember this, and I'm sure you will, a lot of the southern states immediately accepted this, and there wasn't a major problem with getting rid of the segregation laws. And many people feel it was because it was called the Kennedy Bill. And although some southerners obviously would have preferred not to let them, just sit anywhere in a restaurant or sit anywhere on a bus, a lot of them basically thought that it was probably the right thing to do in the memory of President Kennedy. And we know there'd already been some success against segregation laws if you think about what had happened with the bus boycotts and other things like that. Certainly when you look at the one about freedom rides later on, you'll see in 1961 those sorts of things had really started to change on the interstate buses as well. But this completely ended segregation in any public places. This is not to say that there was not white racists and the KKK that totally disagreed with this.